Does no contact work when a girl starts pulling away? Should you use the no contact rule? When you sense a girl's interest is starting to dwindle, when it's getting harder to get her to meet up, when she's not responding to your texts as quickly, or when she does respond, it's these short, half-assed replies. In those moments, should you go no contact with her? That's what we're gonna cover in this video. Hi, I'm Bobby Rio, and a situation I run into all the time with clients is a girl that they had been hanging out with, whether it was a few dates, maybe it's even a girl that they were dating for a while. She starts to pull away. Sometimes it's subtle where they just notice a change in her. Other times she verbalizes it and says something like, "We need space," or "I need time to think," or "let's slow things down." When this happens, you may or may not be wondering if you should do no contact. If you don't know what no contact is, there's a rule that you may or may not have heard about called the no contact rule, which essentially means you should just totally avoid contacting a woman for a specified amount of time, maybe 1 week, maybe 2 weeks, maybe 30 days. If a girl's pulling away, will this work? Well, let's back up a little bit, because before you know if it works, you kind of have to know where you stand with her and where you stand in your own mind, because most of the time when this starts happening, guys go into what I call emotional quicksand. When we have a woman and we're enjoying it, we think it's going somewhere, and all of a sudden we sense she's slipping away, we go into, like I said, emotional quicksand, and you don't think right. You can't make right decisions in that moment, because it's like you're playing from, it's almost like if you've ever known a gambler, and when a gambler's lost and he's trying to win back his money, it's like he just starts losing even more and more money because he's in a really bad place. And that's what happens to us when a woman starts slipping away. We get obsessed with her. All we can talk about with our friends is asking her all these questions. What should I do? How can I get her back? And you're coming from a really desperate place. And when you're in this place, a few things. One is a woman can immediately tell that you're in this place, which actually pushes her further away because she can sense that desperation in you. You're also not going to make the right decisions, because you're going to start convincing yourself of things that may or may not be true. I've been there where a woman starts slipping away and I convince myself, well, it's because she didn't know how much I liked her, and then I went and did things like, send her a long sappy email telling her how much I like her. Some guys may buy her a gift, right? These are mistakes. I call them sort of the nice guy mistakes men make when a woman slips away. We think if she only knows how much I like her, that's gonna make her stay. And a lot of times that's our first instinct. Our first instinct is to make one of these mistakes. And we confess our feelings, or we give her a gift, or we apologize or explain ourselves. And when you do this, you're actually causing her to become less attractive to you. Because here's the thing about when a woman's pulling away. There's something that we kind of refer to as like the attraction scale. And one of the reasons a woman will pull away is because she senses that you're like here on the scale and she's here. Meaning you've already given your hand to her. She already knows, like, she's got you. You want to be her boyfriend. You see a future with her. And she might be here where she's enjoying her time with you, but she's not ready to like commit to you yet. She's having doubts. She's into you, but she's not like at the same level as you. And that's why it almost never works confessing your feelings, because you're essentially putting a lot of pressure on her, because it's like, well, I really like you. And she's like, well, I'm still deciding about you. And now if I get back with you and we continue this, it's almost like I'm committing to something that I'm not ready to commit to. So that's why confessing your feelings will almost never work in this situation. The reason I bring all this up is because a lot of guys wait until after they've made all these mistakes, and then they go, okay, I'm gonna do no contact. I confess my feelings and she's still pulling away, so now I'm gonna do no contact. And when you do that, and I wrote some notes down here, right? When you do that and you disappear after she's given you the speech, then in her mind, she's like, oh man, I really hurt this guy's feelings. He liked me so much. And she kind of pities you, but there's a weird element of, okay, you're not reaching out to her, you're maybe ignoring her a little bit, but it doesn't come from a place of strength. It comes from a place of desperation, and she knows that. She knows that you're really butthurt, and that's why you're not responding to her, and that's why you've gone kind of silent, which doesn't make her more attracted to you. It actually doesn't accomplish anything, right? It gives her an out. So does no contact work in that situation? No, there's times where no contact will work, and I'm gonna explain them, but there's a better way to handle it when you've made mistakes. And there's actually a better way to handle it all around, which I'm gonna talk about in a second. So one of the things that I wrote down here is preemptive. And you always wanna be thinking preemptively, meaning if you've been in a situation where a woman starts pulling away, there's always signs that are coming. It never happens like overnight. It's usually, if you've been hanging out with her a few times, you'll notice something changing. You'll be hanging out with her, maybe you're on a date with her, and there's little subtleties that you pick up on, and a lot of times they're like surface level, meaning you can't quite even explain it, but you notice it. Your gut is telling you like, something changed. You know, maybe she's not laughing at your jokes as loudly as she used to, or maybe when you go to touch her arm, she kind of like hesitates and kind of freezes up a little bit. These little things that are very subtle, you pick up on and you sense that she's slipping away. Here's the thing. Once you sense it, it's a lot easier in that moment to turn it around before you go and you make all those mistakes like confessing your feelings and all that sort of stuff. Now, if you've already made those mistakes, you can still turn it around in a large percentage of the time, but not by continuing making more of those mistakes, and also not by completely going no contact. Here's what I mean. So one of the things that I always say is no contact is not really the right word that I tell guys to use, right? Because no contact is an emotional reaction, meaning she kind of knows what's going on. If you're like ignoring her and like blocking her and all that sort of stuff, it's a reaction. She knows this guy likes me so much and he's so emotionally reacted to what's going on that he had to block me because he can't even handle seeing me, which does not increase your value in her eyes. So what I always say is do a subdued version of no contact, where it's almost like you're mirroring her. Meaning that feeling that you got when she starts slipping away, you almost want to give her that feeling back. Meaning you want to change your communication where she feels like she's losing her power over you. Because there's one thing about human, right? Human nature and basically everything in the dating world is psychology. Everything and everywhere is psychology, right? Sales is psychology, dating is psychology, everything is psychology. And when you understand human psychology, you understand there's a very strong human tendency to not want to lose something that we have. It's just human tendency, right? We value something the most as we feel we're losing it. For instance, if you've ever been in a situation where you were bidding on, let's say, a house, you were gonna go buy a house and you thought you had the house and you were kind of like, I'm nervous, I don't know if I want this house. But then the realtor calls and tells you somebody else put an offer in and the seller's gonna accept that offer. All of a sudden you're like, I gotta have it. I don't wanna lose that house. It was so perfect, right? 2 days ago, you weren't so sure, but the minute you sense you're losing it, that's when the desire to hold on to it kicks in. And part of the reason we get into emotional quicksand when a woman starts slipping away is because of the same thing. When you have a woman and you feel good about yourself and she's into you and you're like, man, this is so well, and then you sense her slipping away, that same fear of loss kicks in where you're like almost desperate to hold on to her. So knowing this, you want to give her that same feeling in a subtle way. You want her to feel like she's slowly losing you. And you may think, well, if she's pulling away, why would she care if she loses me? Because she's pulling away knowing that you're on the back burner, that you really like her. If she decides she likes you, she could come back. And that kind of gives her the peace of mind to explore her options and be like, well, I can, he's there if I need him. On the other hand, and it feels good for her, right? Because you're kind of like you're boosting her ego. You're actually giving her confidence to go out and explore her options because she's like, well, that guy, he was really cool and that guy really liked me, so let me see, right? On the other hand, if she senses like you're not quite as enchanted with her and you do the same thing, you don't tell her that, you just give her that same feeling. When I talked about those subtle differences that she did to you, it's kind of like you find subtle differences to do to her where she gets that feeling like this guy doesn't don't quite have the power and the control over him that I used to. He doesn't see me as so special anymore, right? She might not be thinking those things, but that's what she's feeling. She's feeling that her hold over you is slipping away, and that kicks in that fear of loss. So one of the things I always say is, well, guys will always say to me, well, how do I ask her out? How do I continue things, but also act like I'm slipping away? And the answer that I give them is subdued interest and a time restraint, right? And it's almost like you want to beat her to it, because a lot of times she kind of probably wants to hang out with you. She's still kind of curious. Now, there's some times where a woman is gone, right? She's just mentally, she's already banging her ex-boyfriend and she's totally forgotten about you. And in those situations, yes, just disappear, whatever. I'm talking about the times where it's like, she's still there, but you know you're about to lose her. So in those situations, you do want to get her out, but you don't want to come across as desperate. So one of the things I always say is use a time constraint. Beat her to that. Because in her mind, she's like, I'm not sure, I don't want to go out with him again because I'm not sure, and then I'm going to be stuck and it's going to be weird. So you can beat her to it and say, hey, it'd be cool to hang out. I have I got a lot of stuff going on this week, but I have about 20 minutes before, I have 20 minutes after work, or I have whatever time you want to say. I have 40 minutes after work. Let's grab a drink and catch up. Because now you're almost making it like your time is valuable. You don't want to dedicate too much time for her. And that allows her to put her guard down, because now she's like, oh, okay. But it also allows her to go, wait a minute, why is he not having a lot of time for me? He should have all the time in the world for me. I'm the one who's deciding what I want. And again, this seems silly. It seems like games, but it's psychology. It's just what goes through our mind. So you're actually reversing it a little bit by using this sort of time constraint with her, and then doing subdued interest. Let her start working again to win you over. When you do meet up with her, it's not about trying to convince her that you're this awesome guy and that you guys should be together. It's about leaning back, changing your behavior a little bit, and let her feel that and have her start working to win you over a little bit, working to get you interested again. Because if she doesn't do that, she's not gonna value you. And if she doesn't value you, she's not gonna stay with you, right? So you need to let her get invested into things again. And she's only gonna get invested in things if she feels like she has to win you back a little bit. Because if she knows that she has a 100% hold over you, what happens? What do I always say? If a woman knows she has you 100%, she loses interest. Now, if you want sort of a step-by-step way to do this, then I really recommend watching my Scrambler video, because in that video, I kind of walk you through it, because I went through a lot of stuff quickly because I did want to answer a specific question of, does no contact work? And I wanted to explain how no contact works, but with different variations of it, meaning I usually never recommend a guy goes completely cold, no contact with a woman, unless she's really like disrespected him. And in that case, it's like, or unless he's in such emotional quicksand that he actually needs to distance himself. Because I've been there where like, I've been so fucked up in the head over a girl where it's like, I know I'm gonna do the wrong thing, right? Like if I get in front of her, I'm gonna mess up. So in those situations, you're better off for your own sake doing no contact. But it's not for her, it's for you. If you're trying to win her back, this subdued version of mirroring her and letting her feel like she's losing you, slowly losing you, actually works a lot better. If you want sort of a step-by-step way to do it, watch my Scrambler video below, because I teach that technique. I call it the second chance technique, because this is just sort of scratching the surface of getting her back, right? Because you've got to actually reel her back in. It's not a matter of, oh, he seems a little less interested, I automatically want him. It's reeling her back in a way that makes her feel like it's her idea to start chasing you. So I put a link for that below. Watch that video. Let me know what you think. If you like this video, hit like, subscribe, and leave me a comment and let me know what you want to hear about next time.